17 cars within a second on the grid.
The track temp is 86. The air temp is 78.
What I like to see, babe.
P3. That dojo. They are looking for profit. Someone once said,
Follow car number 08 in the left lane.
That was a true saying.
There are 4 ways in which men pass through life. As gentlemen, farmers, artisans, and merchants. The way of the farmer. Using agricultural instruments, he sees springs through to autumns with an eye on the changes of season. Second is the way of the merchant. The winemaker obtains his ingredients and puts them to use to make his living. The way of the merchant is always to live by taking profit. This is the way of the merchant. Thirdly, the gentleman warrior, carrying the weaponry of his way. The way of the warrior is to master the virtue of his weapons. If a gentleman dislikes strategy, he will not appreciate the benefit of weaponry.
15
so
minutes
must he
left.
not have a little taste for this? Fourthly, the way of the artisan. The way of the
think
carpenter
P2 has
is
gone
to
off
become
in
proficient
chicane.
in the use of his tools. First to lay his plans with a true measure, and then perform his work according to plan. Thus he passes through life. These are the 4 ways of the gentleman, the farmer, the artisan, and the merchant. Comparing the way of the carpenter to strategy.
Car right.
Here, carpenter means both architect
Still there.
and builder, as well as carpenter.
Still
the
there.
comparison with carpentry is through the
Clear right.
connection with
Nice one,
houses.
Bo. On your right.
Houses of the nobility,
Right side's clear.
houses of warriors, the 4 houses, ruin of houses, thriving of houses, the style of the house, the tradition of the house, and the name of the house. The carpenter uses a master plan of the building, and the way of strategy is similar in that there is a plan of campaign. If you want to learn the craft of war, ponder over this book. The teacher is as a needle. The disciple is as thread.
I think you got a
You
bad
must
ping there, Mark.
practice
It's really getting
constantly.
stuck to you there, sorry.
Like the foreman carpenter, the commander must know natural rules, and the rules of the country, and the rules of houses. This is the way of the foreman. The foreman carpenter must know the architectural theory of towers and temples, and the plans of palaces, and must employ men to raise up houses. The way of the foreman carpenter is the same as the way of the commander of a warrior house. In the construction of houses, choice of woods is made. Straight, unknotted timber of good appearance is used for the revealed pillars. Straight timber with small defects is used for the inner pillars.
What about gay timber?
Timber of the finest appearance, even
Or
if
by.
a little weak, is used for the thresholds, lintels, doors, and sliding doors, and so on. Good, strong timber, though it be gnarled and knotted, can always be used discreetly in construction. Timber which is weak or knotted throughout should be used as scaffolding and later for firewood. The foreman carpenter allots his
now in the
men
lead.
work according to their ability. Floor layers, makers of sliding doors, thresholds and lintels, ceilings, and so on. Those of poor ability lay the floors, and those
Hopefully
of
that worked
lesser
out. I backed that
ability
dude up
are
purposely on the
witches
chicane.
and do such miscellaneous work.
Hoping the guy in
If the
third place would get on
foreman knows
him.
and
Looks like they're
deploys his
battling now.
men well,
Hopefully
the
they battle,
finished work
and
will be good.
gives me time to skeet on down the
foreman
road.
should take into account the abilities and limitations of
They
his
might be
men,
side by side, isn't it, this
circulating
turn?
among them and asking nothing unreasonable.
Maybe
He
not.
should know their morale and spirit
There's
and
3 of them
encourage them when necessary. This is the same as the principle of strategy. The way of strategy. Like a trooper, the carpenter sharpens his own tools. He carries his equipment in his toolbox and works under the direction of his foreman. He makes columns and girders with an axe, shapes floorboards and shelves with a plane, cuts fine openwork and carvings accurately, giving as excellent a finish
As his skills will allow.
This is the craft of the carpenters. When the carpenter becomes skilled and understands measures, he can become a foreman. The carpenter's attainment is having tools which will cut well to make small shrines, writing shelves, tables, paper lanterns, chopping boards, and pot lids. These are the specialties of the carpenter. Things are similar, for the trooper. You want to think deeply about this. The attainment of the carpenter is that his work is not warped, that the joints are not misaligned, and that the work is truly planed so that it meets well and is not merely finished in sections. This is essential. If you want to learn this way, deeply consider the things written in this book one at a time. You must do sufficient research. The outline of the 5 books of this book of strategy. 5 books, or Go-Rin no Sho, means a book of 5 rings. The Godai, the 5 greats of Buddhism, are the 5 elements which make up the cosmos. Ground,
Your
water,
last lap time was at
fire,
219.9.
and void. The Go-Rin, the 5 rings of Buddhism, are the 5 parts of the human body. Head, left and right elbows, and left and right knees. The way is shown as
10
5
minutes
books
remaining, 10
concerning
minutes.
different
Well done, Bo.
aspects.
You're looking really
These
good.
are
Come on, keep your
ground,
focus.
Water, fire, wind or tradition, and void. The body of the way of strategy from the viewpoint of my teaching school is explained in the ground book. It is difficult to realize the true way just through sword fencing. Know the smallest things and the biggest things, the shallowest things and the deepest things, as if it were a straight road mapped out on the ground. The
gap
first
to
book
Gutierrez
is called
behind
the
us
ground
now,
book.
1.3 seconds.
Second is the water book. With water as the basis, the spirit becomes like water. Water adopts the shape of its receptacle. It is sometimes a trickle, and sometimes a wild sea. Water has a clear blue color. By the clarity, things of Ichi school are shown in this book. If you master the principles of sword fencing, when you freely beat one man, you beat any man in the world. The spirit of defeating a man is the same for 10 million men. The strategist makes small things into big things, like building a great Buddha from a 1-foot model. I cannot write in detail how this is done. The principle of strategy is having one thing to know 10,000 things. Things of Ichi school are written in this, the water book. Third is the fire book. This book is about fighting. The spirit of fire is fierce, whether the fire be small or big, and so it is with battles. The way of battles is the same for man-to-man fights, and for 10,000-a-side battles. You must appreciate that spirit can become big or small. What is big is easy to perceive. What is small is difficult to perceive. In short, it is difficult for large numbers of men to change position so their movements can be easily predicted. An individual can easily change his mind, so his movements are
The guy behind has just done a 220.0.
The essence of this book is that you must train day and night in order to make quick decisions. In strategy, it is necessary to treat training as a part of normal life, with your spirit unchanging. Thus, combat in battle is described in the fire book. Fourthly, the wind book. This book is not concerned with my Ichi school, but with
Okay,
other
Bo, that's
schools
half
of
distance.
strategy.
Fuel levels are
By
fine.
wind, I mean old traditions, present-day traditions, and family traditions of strategy. Thus, I clearly explain
You're
the
leading.
strategies of the world. This is tradition. It is difficult to know yourself if you do not know others. To all ways, there are sidetracks. If you study a way daily, and your spirit diverges, you may think you are obeying a good way. But objectively, it is not the true way. If you are following the true way and diverge a little, this will later become a large
The gap to
divergence.
Gutierrez behind us now, 1.2.
Other strategies have come to be thought of as mere sword fencing, and it is not unreasonable that this should be so. The benefit of my strategy, although it includes sword fencing, lies in a separate principle. I have explained what is commonly meant by strategy in other schools in the tradition or wind book. Fifthly, the book of the void. By void, I mean that which has no beginning and no end. Attaining this principle means not attaining the principle. The way of strategy is the way of nature. When you appreciate the power of nature, knowing the rhythm of any situation, you will be able to hit the enemy naturally and strike naturally. All this is the way of the void. I intend to show you how to follow the true way, according to nature, in the Book of the Void. The Name Ichi Ryo Nito. One school, two swords. Warriors, both commanders and troopers, carried two swords at their belt. In olden times, these were called the long sword and the sword. Nowadays, they are known as the sword and the companion sword. Let it suffice to say that in our land, whatever the reason, a warrior carries two swords at his belt. It is the way of the warrior. Nito Ichi Ryu shows the advantage of using both swords. Students of the Ichi school way of strategy should train from the start with the sword and long sword in either hand. Note that the samurai wore two swords thrust through the belt with the cutting edges upward on the left side. The shorter or companion sword was carried at all times, and the longer sword worn only out of doors. From time to time, there were rules governing the style and length of swords. Samurai carried two swords, but other classes were allowed only one sword for protection against brigands on the roads between towns. This is a truth. When you sacrifice your life, you must make fullest use of your weaponry. It is false not to do so, and to die with a weapon yet undrawn. If you hold a sword with both hands, it is difficult to wield it freely to left and right, so my method is to carry the sword in one hand. This does not apply to large weapons such as the spear or halberd, but swords and companion swords can be carried in one hand. To hold the long sword in both hands is not the true way. For if you carry a bow or spear or other arms in your left hand, you have only one hand free for the long sword. However, when it is difficult to cut an enemy down with one hand, you must use both hands. It is not difficult to wield a sword in one hand. The way to learn this is to train with two long swords, one in each hand. It will seem difficult at first, but everything is difficult at first. Bows are difficult to draw. Halberds are difficult to wield. As you become accustomed to the bow, so your pull will become stronger. When you become used to wielding the long sword, you will gain the power of the way and wield the sword well. As I will explain in the second book, the Water Book, there is no fast way of wielding the long sword.
That was a
The long sword should be
220.5.
wielded broadly, and the companion sword closely. This is the first thing to realize. According to this Ichi school, you can win with a long weapon, and yet you can also win with a short weapon.
The gap to Gutierrez behind is now
The way of
0.8.
Ichi school is the spirit of winning, whatever the weapon and whatever its size. It is better to use two swords rather than one when you are fighting a crowd, and especially if you want to take a prisoner. These things cannot be explained in detail. For one thing, know 10,000 things. When you attain the way of strategy, there will not be one thing you cannot see. You must study hard. The benefit of the two characters reading
Almost lost her there.
Masters of the long sword are called strategists. We do not call masters of the way of the long sword long swordsmen, nor do we speak of companion swordsmen, because bows, guns, spears, and halberds are all warriors' equipment. They are certainly part of strategy. To master the virtue of the long sword is to govern the world and oneself.
Just
Thus,
2 minutes
the long
left, 2
sword
minutes to go.
is the basis of strategy. The principle is strategy by means of the long sword. If he attains the virtue of the long sword, one man can beat 10 men. Just as one man can beat 10, so 100 men can beat 1,000, and 1,000 can beat 10,000. In my strategy, one man is the same as 10,000. So this strategy is the complete warrior's craft. The way of the warrior does not include other ways, such as Confucianism, Buddhism, certain
Coming up
traditions,
on the last
artistic
lap.
accomplishments, and dancing.
Hopefully we can hold them off.
But even though these are not part of the way, if you know the way broadly, you will see it in everything. Men must polish their particular way. the benefit of weapons in strategy.
Terrible lap time.
And forget the true way. Thus you will have difficulty in actual encounters.
Second slower.
Just as a horse must have endurance and no defects, so it is with weapons. Horses should walk strongly, and swords and companion swords
You've
should
used half
cut
your fuel.
strongly. Spears and halberds must stand up to heavy use. Bows and guns must be sturdy. Weapons should be hardy rather than decorative. You should not have a favorite weapon. To become overfamiliar with one weapon is as much a fault as not knowing it sufficiently well. You should not copy others, but use weapons which you can handle properly. It is bad for commanders and troopers to have likes and dislikes. These are things you must learn thoroughly. Timing in strategy. There is timing in everything. Timing in strategy cannot be mastered without a great deal of practice. Timing is important in dancing and pipe or string music, for they are in rhythm only if timing is good. Timing and rhythm are also involved in the military arts, shooting bows and guns and riding horses. In all skills and abilities, there is timing. There is also timing in the void. There is timing in the whole life of the warrior, in his thriving and declining, in his harmony and discord. Similarly, there is timing in the way of the merchant, in the rise and fall of capital. All things entail rising and falling timing. You must be able to discern this. In strategy, there are various timing considerations. From the outset, you must know the applicable timing and the inapplicable timing. And from among the large and small things and the fast and slow timings, find the relevant timing. First seeing the distance timing and the background timing. This is the main thing in strategy. It is especially important to know the background
Good race,
timing.
guys.
Otherwise your strategy
Well
will
done, Bo.
become
Great win. You
uncertain.
deserved that today.
You win in battles with the timing in the void, born of the timing of cunning by knowing the enemy's timing, and thus using a timing which